Hello, and welcome to Sonic Digressions. Today, I am exploring robot voice processing techniques. Stay tuned to find out more.
Over the last few years, I've found myself having to do a lot of robot and AI voice processing on various different projects. So, in true YouTube clickbait fashion, I thought I'd put together a list of 10 techniques that I keep coming back to again and again. So, no time to waste, let's get on with the list. I'm kicking off this list with a classic, vocoding. If you've ever heard the Cylons in the original Battlestar Galactica, you know what this sounds like. But before we begin, let's listen to the raw samples I'll be using today. I recorded these lines earlier and then edited out some noise and applied a little bit of EQ and compression. Here's what they sound like. A robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. So let's continue. I'm not going to go into too much detail here, but essentially what vocoding does is take the pitch and timbre information of a carrier signal and modifies it with the articulations provided by, in this case, a human voice. You can see that my carrier signal is a raw sawtooth waveform from this synth, and this gets passed into the vocoder, which is on the track with my voice. Here's what it sounds like.
A robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm.
Now there are various ways you can tweak this, but here's one thing I like to do. You'll see that my carrier signal in this case is a single note. Well, I like to use Ableton's option to convert melody to a new MIDI track, and then use that pitch information as part of the carrier signal. Let's quickly take a listen to what that sounds like.
A robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm.
You'll notice that using this technique restores some of that natural cadence of the human voice, while still sounding completely synthetic in character. Number 2, another classic, ring modulation. If you think Doctor Who Daleks, then you'll know what I'm talking about. Ring modulation in its most basic terms takes two signals and multiplies them together. In this case, we're multiplying the signal from my vocal recording with the signal from this sine wave modulator. Ring modulation can sound extreme and often unbearable, so for best results I find on voice, using a frequency of somewhere between 40 and 60 Hz to be most pleasing. Here's what that sounds like.
A robot must obey the orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law.
Also, another idea here is to mix in some of the dry signal, which results in a more subtle effect, but perhaps a little bit more tasteful. On to number 3, pitch and formant shifting. I can't think of any obvious examples of this, but I'm sure it's used a lot as a processing technique. The concept of pitch shifting should be clear, but formant shifting might be trickier to explain. Essentially, formants can be thought of as the natural resonant frequencies of your vocal tract. The result of shifting these resonant peaks up or down in the frequency spectrum when applied to a voice can often sound like you're modifying the gender of the performer. There are many plugins that do this, but today I'm just going to quickly show you two. The first is Ultra Pitch by Waves. Here I'm dropping the pitch by an octave, and also moving the formants down. The result sounds like this.
A robot must protect its own existence, as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second laws.
While we're at it, let's take a listen to Little Altar Boy by Soundtoys. In this example, I'm dropping the pitch a little, but also raising the formants, which results in a totally unnatural sounding voice.
A robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm.
Bonus points to Little Altar Boy for having a robot setting.
A robot must obey the orders given it
By human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law.
Number 4 on my list is Melodyne, very much related to pitch and formant shifting, but this plugin gives you a degree of control that you wouldn't be able to achieve with other approaches. The sound of GLaDOS from the Portal series was largely achieved using Melodyne. Now, I'm not going to attempt to recreate that sound, but hopefully this will give you some idea as to how you could obtain similar results. You start by recording into the plugin itself. Then you can modify the pitches of the syllables individually. The most interesting results can be gotten by using the pitch modulation tool to flatten out the pitches of the words. So instead of hearing the natural wavering of a human voice, we're left with something far more synthetic.
A robot must obey the orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law.
My next approach to robot voice processing is something called linear predictive coding. Now that might sound complicated, but essentially it's a really early form of speech encoding technology. If you've ever used a speak and spell, or its less popular brother, the speak and maths, you'll have an idea what this sounds like. Now, I've not found many plugins that can do this kind of processing. Speakerphone by AudioEase is one that can. A cheaper alternative is BitSpeak by Sonic Charge, which actually goes as far as emulating the look of a speak and spell in its UI. Here's what it sounds like on my voice.
A robot must obey the orders given it by human beings, except where such orders would conflict with the first law.
As you can hear, the result is quite a retro-sounding synthetic processing. This plugin is really tweakable, and I'd highly recommend it for anybody looking for some kind of new bit reduction style processing. Moving on to number 6. This approach is deceptively simple, but can produce some wild results. The basic idea is to take your recording, duplicate it, and then pitch the duplicated versions by varying degrees to taste. In this example, I have 3 layers: the original, one pitched down by 2 semitones, and one pitched down by 4 semitones. Here's what that sounds like when all the layers are played together.
A robot must protect its own existence, as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second laws.
As you can hear, suddenly you go from a normal-sounding human voice to something that sounds completely otherworldly and unnatural. The nice thing about this approach is that you can easily apply different effects to the individual layers for added interest. Next in my list is the rather broad category of time-based effects. This can mean anything from delay and reverb to chorus, flange, or even phasers. The point is that all of these approaches can apply a synthetic sheen to voice recordings to give them an unnatural character. I would expect that most examples of robots or AI in popular media have at least some time-based effects applied to them. In this example, I'm using Replica XT by Native Instruments, which is a delay with some other effects included. One simple approach is to use a short delay time. I have mine set to 9 milliseconds, and then set the feedback to taste. This results in an unnatural metallic resonance, which has the effect of disguising the sound of a human body's vocal tract. Just to note that I'm applying a little bit of chorus here too for added depth. Let's have a listen.
A robot must protect its own existence, as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second laws.
The next thing on my list isn't actually a plugin, but a physical device, the TalkBox. Now, a TalkBox is essentially a speaker and a tube, and you play the signal through the speaker. It travels up the tube, you place the tube in your mouth, and you mouth the words you want to speak. It's famously used in Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger by Daft Punk. Now you might think, well, that sounds easy, but in reality it's actually not. There's a lot of nuance and skill involved. One of the skills is that you actually need to perform the plosives, consonants, and sibilant sounds in order for the words to have any kind of clarity whatsoever. So here's a video of me failing miserably at it.
A robot may not injure another human being, or through inaction allow another human being to come to harm. Hello, my name is Ross.
Number 9 on my list is not so much an effects processing technique as an approach to recording and editing that can yield unnatural sounding performances. The core concept is to take your script and break it down into its individual words. You then have your actor perform those words separately. Then you take those individually recorded words and splice them together to form the complete sentence. In this case, I've tried to match the rhythm of my spliced together words with a complete take of the line. Here's the result. A robot may not injure a human being, or through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. Now this might sound a little bit jarring by itself, but when layered with a complete take and with some effects added, it can sound really robotic.
A robot may not injure a human being, or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm.
My final approach may seem like cheating at first, but if anything, it's probably the most authentic technique on this list. Speech synthesis has come a long way in recent years. There are now many solutions that provide TTS capability, from Amazon Poly to Google Cloud. The problem is that this technology is becoming so advanced that it often no longer sounds robotic. That said, you can still find some web apps that spit out TTS downloadable MP3 files. Here's one I found that sounds like a Swedish Stephen Hawking.
A robot may not injure a human being or, through inaction, allow a human being to come to harm. A robot must obey orders given it by human beings except where such orders would conflict with the first law.
A disclaimer here, if you're using this for commercial projects, make sure you've obtained the proper license from the owner of the technology. So that's the list. But to wrap things up, I'm going to run through a few quick tips that make this kind of processing a lot easier. My first tip is to get the performance right. Now, it might sound obvious, but if the actor knows what kind of processing is going to be applied afterwards, it means they can deliver their performance with that in mind. So even things like giving them the treated version of the signal in their cans can help a lot if it's possible. My second tip is to edit really, really tightly. And what I mean by that is to remove any breath sounds or mouth sounds that give away the fact that this is actually human speaking. You'll find when you do that, you're well on the way to getting performance that sounds really unnatural. Third tip is to mix and match processing techniques. Any one of the techniques I went through today has the danger of sounding cliched and maybe unoriginal if used by itself. However, when you layer and combine these effects in different ways, you can get really fresh and original results. My fourth tip is a classic. Less is more. You'll find that you can really overdo the processing with these kind of techniques. And if you do that, you tend to lose all clarity in the performance. So simple things like mixing in a bit of the dry signal to the affected sound can really help in the long run. So that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If there's any techniques that you feel like I might have missed out on, I'd love to know, so if you hit me up in the comment section, that'd be great. Till next time.